All right, so you sent over a whole stack of stuff on forecast value added, or FVA, and
Yeah.
when I first saw it, I was like, okay, is this going to be a little dry? But I have to say, once I started digging in,
Right.
it really got interesting. There's so much more to it
Yeah.
than I expected.
It really is. It's one of those concepts that, seems kind of basic on the surface, but when you get into it,
Right.
there's a lot there. And I think it's, a lot of what we're trying to do in forecasting generally is just trying to figure out how to make better decisions
Right.
and how to kind of figure out what works and what doesn't.
Exactly. And that's what I think you're looking for here, right? You really want to understand this FVA thing,
Right.
not just get a quick definition. We're going to really dig into what it is,
Yeah.
why it's become so popular in so many different fields,
Yeah.
and maybe even, how you can use it in your own work.
A lot of people have this kind of intuitive sense that, there's things we do when we forecast that are valuable and things that aren't. And I think what FEA gives you is it gives you a framework to actually measure that and make data-driven decisions about where to focus your efforts.
Uh-huh.
Because, gut feel is one thing, but being able to actually show, this is adding value or this is not adding value is really powerful.
Yeah. It's like having a magnifying glass for your predictions, right? We can really zoom in and say, okay, this part of the process, this is adding value. This part's just noise.
Right.
Maybe even this part is actually hurting our accuracy.
And sometimes the answer isn't what you think it's going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there was one study that showed that sometimes sales teams' really detailed forecasts were less accurate. They're just saying nothing's going to change from last month.
Wow.
So you think all that effort, all that expertise would lead to a better forecast.
Yeah.
But it was actually just adding bias.
Yeah. It's counterintuitive, right? You think more information is always better.
Right.
But in this case, it wasn't. So I think, okay, let's start with like the real basis.
Yep.
What is FVA in a nutshell?
It's essentially a way to measure how much each step in your forecasting process changes the accuracy of the final forecast.
Got it.
So it's really trying to break down and say, okay, we're doing all these things. What's the incremental value of each piece?
Okay, so I'm getting that, but can we make it a little more concrete for people? Like what's a simple example?
So think about it maybe like A/B testing, in marketing.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably familiar with that concept where you have two different versions of a web page or something like that, and you want to see which one performs better.
Uh-huh.
FVA is kind of like the A/B testing of forecasting. You're comparing different approaches and measuring which one leads to the most accurate prediction.
Okay, I like that. So like if I add a step where I like consult with a panel of experts,
Yeah.
FVA would tell me like, did that actually improve my forecast?
Exactly. And that's where this idea of a naive forecast comes in. That's a simple baseline prediction that we use as a benchmark in FVA.
So you're setting a low bar and saying like, can you beat even the super basic prediction?
Exactly. A common naive model is the no change model, where you just assume the future is going to be the same as the present.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if you sold 100 widgets last month, your naive forecast would be to sell 100 widgets this month.
That seems so simple. Like, why would you even bother doing anything more complicated?
You'd be surprised. Sometimes those simple naive forecasts work really well.
Oh.
And that's kind of the point of FVA, is to say, like, are we actually adding value with all this extra stuff we're doing?
Right.
Or would we be better off just sticking with something simple?
Like we're cutting through the clutter, right?
Exactly.
Getting to what really matters. I'm starting to see why this has gotten so popular.
And, I think what's really interesting, too, is that FVA isn't just about improving accuracy. It's also about understanding why certain steps are valuable and what's driving those improvements. And so I think, the insights you get from that can go beyond just forecasting and help you make better decisions across your organization.
Right. It's like a deeper understanding of your business.
Exactly.
Not just, a number.
Right.
So you mentioned before that FVA has applications across like a ton of different industries.
Yeah.
Like I think you said retail manufacturing, healthcare, finance, even supply chain management.
Yeah. I mean, really, it's pretty ubiquitous at this point. We're seeing it across all kinds of different organizations.
So give us a little taste of that. Like, how is this actually being used in the real world?
Yeah.
Let's start with retail. I think that's something everyone can kind of relate to.
Sure. So, think about those apparel retailers, for example, the ones with these massive supply chains.
Mm-hmm.
They're forecasting demand. They want to make sure they have the right clothes in the right stores at the right time. And a lot of times you have planners who are really experienced and They're making adjustments to these statistically generated forecasts
Yeah.
based on their knowledge of trends,
Right.
their gut feel for what's going to sell.
So it's like data plus that human intuition.
Exactly. It's kind of blending those two things together.
Yeah.
But what some retailers are finding is that those manual overrides those adjustments.
Yeah.
Even from seasoned professionals, they don't always add value.
Yeah.
In fact, in some cases, they've found that those adjustments actually decreased
Wow.
forecast accuracy.
So they would have been better off just sticking with the
Right.
data.
Right.
That's surprising.
It is. And it highlights the importance of questioning our assumptions, even those that seem like common sense.
Yeah.
FVA gives you the data to
Yeah,
really
yeah.
back up your decisions.
Yeah. That's a great example. What
Yeah.
about manufacturing? I imagine forecasting's huge there too.
Absolutely. So manufacturers, they need to forecast demand for their products so they can make sure they have the right materials and production capacity in place. And, a lot of times there's multiple layers of input to the forecasting process. You have sales, you have marketing, you have operations, all kind of feeding into that final forecast.
It sounds like it could get pretty complicated.
It can be.
Okay.
And that's where FVA could be really helpful because it allows you to say, okay, we've got all these different people,
Right.
all these different steps. Are any of these actually adding value? One automotive parts supplier,
Okay.
they found that while management overrides sometimes improve the forecast slightly, the gains were so small that they didn't justify the time and effort involved.
Interesting.
And so it was actually more cost-effective to just stick with that initial statistically generated forecast.
So it's like FVA helps you find that sweet spot between complexity and efficiency.
Exactly.
What about healthcare?
Yeah.
That's not an industry I immediately think of when I think about forecasting.
You might be surprised. I mean, healthcare providers,
Yeah.
they need to forecast patient demand so they know how many beds, how much staff, how much equipment they need to have available.
Yeah.
And then you've got pharmaceutical companies.
Right.
They're using forecasting to predict drug demand, manage inventory. One medical equipment company,
Okay.
they used FVA to analyze their sales forecasts.
Huh?
And they found that their sales team had a systematic bias towards being overly optimistic,
Oh, wow.
which was leading to all sorts of problems, excess inventory, lost revenue.
Yeah.
So, it really helped them identify a blind spot
That's fascinating.
in their process.
It's like uncovering these hidden biases.
Right.
That are affecting our predictions
Right.
that we're not even aware of.
Right.
And then finance,
Oh, yeah, finance, of course.
Right.
I mean, financial analysts, they live and breathe forecasts, right?
Right.
From revenue projections to budget planning to risk assessment.
Yeah.
And FEA can help them determine whether all these, adjustments that get made to those forecasts,
Right.
are they actually adding value? Or are they just adding noise?
There was one article you sent over about a company that was using FVA to evaluate their revenue forecasts. And
Oh, right, yeah. So they were doing this analysis.
yeah.
And what they found was that the initial statistically generated revenue forecast was often more accurate
Wow.
than the versions that had been adjusted by, regional sales managers.
Yeah.
These managers were trying to hit their targets.
Right.
And so they were, subconsciously inflating their projections.
Yeah.
And it was actually hurting the accuracy
Yeah.
of the company's overall forecasting.
That's so interesting how sometimes like even well-intentioned human intervention can
Right.
backfire.
It's a classic case of bias creeping into the process.
Yeah.
And FVA helps you identify that.
Okay, so we've seen how FVA is being applied across all these different industries, but what about supply chain management?
Yeah.
That's kind of where it can start, right?
That's right. I mean, FVA has really become essential in supply chain management. I mean, it's used to identify the most accurate forecasting methods for different types of products,
Right.
to evaluate the impact of promotional activities,
Yeah.
to assess the value of collaboration with suppliers.
Right.
I mean, it really touches on so many different aspects.
And I know you mentioned some big names like Intel and Cisco.
Yeah.
I think Nestle, Yokohama Tire.
Right. Those are just a few examples. I mean, there's tons of companies out there,
Right.
big and small, that are using FVA to really optimize their supply chains and gain a competitive advantage.
So this is not just theoretical.
Right.
This is actually being implemented by some of the biggest players in the world.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've seen the power of FVA in action, but now the question is, how do we actually make it work?
Right.
Like, it can't be as simple as just like
Oh,
running
yeah.
some numbers,
Right.
right?
Implementing FVA effectively requires, a combination of the right technical know-how,
Yeah.
but also the right approach and the right mindset.
So where do we start? What are like the key ingredients
Mhm.
to successful FVA implementation? So where do we start? What are like the key ingredients to a
Yeah.
successful FVA implementation?
Well, I think first and foremost, it starts with leadership buy-in.
Yeah.
You need to have people at the top who understand the value of FVA
Right.
and are committed to supporting its adoption.
Right.
Because without that, it's going to be an uphill battle.
That makes sense. You need everyone on board
Yeah.
rowing in the same direction. But even with leadership support, there's got to be challenges, right? What are some of the...
Yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest challenges is data availability.
Okay.
To do FVA properly, you need to be able to track the evolution of the forecast
Right.
at each step.
Yeah.
But a lot of companies, their systems just aren't set up to capture that level of detail.
Right.
They may only store the final version of the forecast,
Yeah.
which makes it impossible to go back and say, okay, how did this adjustment affect things?
Right. So you're trying to streamline your forecasting process, but
Yeah.
you end up creating more work just trying to like get the data you need.
Yeah,
It's a little ironic.
it is a bit ironic, and
Yeah.
it's something that a lot of companies struggle with.
Yeah. So how do you overcome that? Like what can companies do?
Well, sometimes it involves some IT investment,
Right.
upgrading their systems or creating new data tracking processes.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just a matter of, good old-fashioned manual record keeping.
Right.
But whatever it takes, you got to have that data if you want to get the full benefits of FVA.
Makes sense. Okay. So data availability is one challenge.
Yeah.
What else should companies be aware of?
I think another potential pitfall is becoming too fixated on accuracy
Right.
as the only measure of value. Remember, FVA is primarily looking at whether a step improves forecast accuracy,
Yeah.
but there might be other benefits to that step, even if it doesn't directly boost the numbers.
Right. It's like what we were talking about before about those consensus meetings
Right.
where everyone gets together to discuss the forecast.
Yeah.
It may not actually move the needle on accuracy,
Right.
but it could still be valuable for team building.
Exactly. And alignment. Or, a particular step might help mitigate risk or improve communication with stakeholders,
Yeah.
even if it doesn't have a huge impact on that final number.
Right. So it's important to keep that broader context in mind
Yeah.
and not just blindly eliminate steps
Right.
just because they don't show a big FEA improvement.
Exactly.
So it's really about finding that balance between
Yeah.
the data-driven insights and those more nuanced qualitative factors
Right.
that are hard to measure but still really important.
Exactly.
It seems like FEA is a great tool,
Yeah.
but it's not a magic bullet.
No.
You have to use it thoughtfully
Right.
and in conjunction with good judgment.
Yeah, and I think that kind of leads to another limitation of FEA, which is that it's inherently backward-looking.
Oh.
It analyzes historical data to tell you what worked in the past, but it can't predict the future.
So if there's like a sudden shift in the market
Right.
or, some big change
Yeah.
in your business environment.
If something totally unexpected happens,
Yeah.
FVA may not be able to pick up on that
Right.
away.
You need to be aware of that and be ready to adapt
Yeah.
as needed.
Yeah,
So it's like that saying you can't drive a car by looking only in the rearview mirror.
exactly.
You have to be looking ahead too.
Yep.
So, okay, we've talked about the importance of leadership buy-in.
Yeah.
The challenges of data availability,
Uh-huh.
the risk of focusing too narrowly on accuracy,
Right.
and the limitations of a backward-looking approach.
Yeah.
Any other advice
Yeah.
for companies that are looking to implement FVA?
I would say start with the basics. Don't try to boil the ocean all at once.
Right.
Focus on the major steps in your forecasting process.
Yeah.
Any obvious areas where there might be waste or inefficiency. And I think it's really important to involve the people who are actually doing the forecasting.
Right.
They're the ones with the hands-on experience.
Yeah.
And the insights that can help you identify the most impactful areas for improvement.
So get the team involved.
Yeah.
Start with the low-hanging fruit.
Right.
Build from there.
Exactly. And remember, FVA is a journey, not a destination.
Right.
You're never going to, finish implementing FVA.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing process of learning, refining, adapting your forecasting process to meet the, ever-changing needs of your business.
This has been so insightful. I feel like I have a much better understanding of what FVA is, how it works, the potential benefits, the challenges.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts for our listeners before we wrap up?
Well, here's something to ponder. What if we applied this FVA mindset not just to our business forecasts,
Right.
but to our own personal decision-making.
Okay.
We all make forecasts every day, even if we don't realize it.
Yeah.
We forecast how long it's going to take to commute to work,
Right.
how much we're going to spend at the grocery store, even how a particular conversation is going to go.
Yeah.
What if we started questioning our assumptions and looking for ways to improve the accuracy
Right.
of our personal forecasts?
That's really interesting. I like that.
Yeah.
We could all benefit from being a little bit more data-driven in our personal lives. Maybe even like track our predictions,
Yeah,
see how well they align with reality.
exactly.
It'd be a fun experiment.
It would be.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe we'd all be a little less surprised by life's twists and turns.
That's great food for thought.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into forecast value added.
Yeah.
It's been a fascinating exploration, and I hope you learned as much as I did.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
And to our listener,
Yeah.
I encourage you to keep exploring FVA
Yeah.
and see how you can apply these principles to make better predictions and decisions
Right.
in all areas of your life.
Until next time, happy forecasting.